need to say and go.
And go.
And go.
And go.
And for the shimmy.
So I fell in love with acting in California. The first thing they did in the US, they looked at me and said, "Oh, you're a theater major. Of course you study acting." And I said, No. I'm not an actress. I don't study acting. I want to know the history of theater. But they forced me into acting classes. And I hated it for 2 months. Didn't know what I was doing there. By being very patient with me, something clicked, and after 2 months it was like, I loved it. I did an acting exercise, and for at least 10 seconds, which is an eternity, forgot what I was supposed to do. It was like a glitch in the brain.
That's also this beauty and the freedom where you get there, are able to let go of everything and just be in the moment.
Like writing in English feels very different from writing in German.
I feel in this language, I dream in this language, I write, and it's something that makes absolute sense to me.
I was born with the wrong mother tongue.
Julia, thank you so
Hello.
much for your precious time. Thank you for coming on. It's such an honor.
Thank you for asking me. I'm looking forward to this, to talking with you two ladies.
Oh, thank you. You lady, you.
We're so polite. Oh my God.
So let's be honest. Julia.
Yes.
No.
Yes. Down to business.
Down to business. I'll start introducing you. You are a fabulous, fantastic, out of the, I don't know, moon. Like, you're just, it's so beautiful how talented you are as an actress. I've seen you on screen. I love it. It's amazing. You are a fantastic writer. And you stumbled into producing. I'm just going to say it that way. But you're also a fantastic producer, but I know there was kind of a stumbling into it. Which is interesting, and we're definitely going to talk about that today.
Mm-hmm.
But the first thing I want to ask you is that you are Austrian.
Yes.
You are now based in Austria.
Again, yes.
Again, exactly. But there was something, and you told us about that before, that drew you to the English language and to training in London.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So thank you for this appraisal at the beginning. That was, thank you. I'm just going to take it. I think I've always been in love with the language, with English. My dad's best friend used to be American. So sometimes I say I almost grew up bilingual because I almost grew up bilingual. It was not in the household, but Doug was often around, of course. So my first choice when it came to going to university was, I'm going to study English, which is what I did. So studied theater history and English in Vienna and went to San Diego, beautiful sunshine, California, San Diego for a year abroad, which is, side note, where I started acting. Not because it was California, but that's a different story. And then I came back, finished the theater study and English degree here, and decided, now I'm going to go study acting in London. Which is why if I don't focus on one accent, I'm going to go in and out between British and American. Forgive me. That's just how it is. So yes, and in the end, I met George and we moved to Ireland. So it was, so far it's been 3 English-speaking countries. I'm looking forward to more English-speaking countries or other countries. Who knows?
But tell me more. Wow, my God. I want to hear all about it. I want to hear about San Diego. I want to hear about why you started acting there. I want to hear about, then London. Why London? Please tell us.
San Diego was my first choice for a year abroad because, again, my dad's best friend, Uncle, I called him Uncle Doug. He unfortunately passed away. Uncle Doug and Aunt Elsie, they lived in San Diego. So I knew for my year abroad, I wanted to apply to a school there, study there. And very fortunately, one of the universities, they took me on board and I was able to spend a year there, which I know is an absolute privilege. And since theater history, like in German, Theater, Film und Medienwissenschaft, is such a specific study for the European, if not even the Austrian, niche market. We only study it here. The first thing they did in the US, they looked at me and said, "Oh, you're a theater major. Of course you study acting." And I said, no. I'm not an actress. I don't study acting. I want to know the history of theater. I want to become a dramaturg. But they forced me into acting classes because I had to take them as a theater major. And I hated it for 2 months. Absolutely hated it. Didn't know what I was doing there. But I had a very, very good teacher. And my background was in dance. So I knew the stage from dancing. And this brilliant teacher, his girlfriend was a dancer. So whenever I said this feels very unfamiliar, the acting on stage feels so wrong as compared to dancing that I was used to, he would understand in a way. And he said, my girlfriend, I talked with her about that, and she sort of feels the same. His name was George Ye. Shout out to George Ye. And by being very patient with me, something clicked. And after 2 months, it was like, I love this. I don't want to do anything else. So I fell in love with acting in California, not because of LA, but because of a very good acting teacher.
May I ask you something?
And how old were you there?
Yeah.
At 21.
21.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you didn't have any prior acting experience?
No.
So it was like the first...
No, it
Okay.
was the first time acting. Like, I think dancing on stage, you're not afraid of being in front of an audience, obviously.
Yes.
And I'd been a dancer basically all my life, so I knew what it is like to go on there and to perform for people who are watching. But dancing is different than acting. As a dancer, I'm not going to say you're always yourself, because of course you can go into characters. I'm going to say something very weird, but dancers will understand. As a dancer,
I'm a former one.
yay! So you're going to
please
understand me.
go for
I feel as a dancer, you breathe the room. So you take the entire room in. And as an actor, like acting on stage, I feel so focused on my character and the person I'm acting with. And yes, the audience is there. And yes, of course, you perform for them and you share the stories you tell with them. But somehow it's different. Valeria, help me out on that one.
No, I wanted to ask you guys about this. Please, can I ask one question? Because I am not a dancer, unfortunately. I would love to say I'm a dancer like you guys.
You look like a dancer.
I know. No, I'm joking. Unfortunately. But
Maybe it's something to explore.
maybe something to explore now. Ballet. No, maybe not. But I would love to understand from the both of you then. And Julia, what you're talking about, like, I didn't really understand. You said it's so different, and it was such a, like, to understand the acting and the dancing, and what was that feeling? Like, I just want to, what is it? What was so different? Why?
I think it's easiest to explain. Like the first time it clicked for me was when I did an acting exercise, and for I think at least 10 seconds, which is an eternity, forgot what I was supposed to do. And it was like a glitch in the brain, a beautiful glitch, I have to add, nothing dangerous. And I was just standing there being without anything that I would have, known what to do. There was no chance of me going, I'm going to do this now. So acting as being and not as doing. And as a dancer, yes, you have to be on stage and hold the space and again, I'm going to call it breathe the room because that's how it feels to me. And you give, and as an actor, the giving is your being. Oh God, this is going to turn so philosophical.
I love it.
We love this. We're here for this.
Love it.
So that was the first time I was like, it is being me in front of people. And yes, in a role as a character, but just being, that felt so incredible. And that's what I fell in love with.
I think I wouldn't be able to tell the difference necessarily. I have some acting experience as a child, but I think it's like a very different thing when you're acting as a 6-year-old, 5-year-old. It's kind of, whereas, compared to like 21, for example, right? So as a child, you are more kind of free, you are more in this space of playfulness, you want to explore, you're curious, maybe you're a little bit insecure, but that wasn't necessarily my case. So it was like a playground for me. And it was a community type of theater. And I was there because like my friend's mother was, she helped with the costumes. And we were just like there, like, she was keeping an eye on us. And then with the time, we just started to play in different, act in different performances and stuff, and as actors, and nothing too serious. But I remember it being very fun. Whereas with dancing, I was doing it professionally for 12 years, and it was like a lot of work. And you were put in performance, like really embodying this, and you trained for it, and it's like it felt less playful, more kind of like your professional act. So you have to be like composed, and I guess what you're saying, you breathe in the room, is like you're working with the energy that the audience is giving you. So if there is like a fascination is something that's like builds up inside you, and you kind of project it back to the audience. Yeah, but I think what kind of dancing you were doing?
What didn't I do? I started with ballet when I was 4 years old. I saw this ballet on TV. It was either Swan Lake or the Nutcracker or the Sleeping Beauty, like one of the classics. I saw it on TV, and I talked my parents into sending me to ballet class, as you do, as a 4-year-old. And then later on, picked up jazz and all the jazz thing, hip hop, which I was never really good at. Tried some sort of, what did I try? I tried Afro, I tried breakdance, I tried so many things. And on stage, I mostly, 90% on stage, I was a contemporary dancer. So modern contemporary has always been a passion.
So I asked because I think when you said that when you act of the other person, so it's like some type of chemistry between you two. Whereas with dancing, contemporary is like a solo act, more or less. You dance with the people, but like you concentrate on yourself more, right?
It can be, but I was in a company, and I think to this day, I haven't seen a lot of them in years and years, but to this day, I swear, if I meet one of the girls from back then, I would still feel them. Again, I'm gonna be so, oh god, this is not an esoteric podcast, I'm sorry.
It is.
But
it is.
It can be.
Now it is.
when you dance together, you feel each other, which goes with breathing the room. Oh god, Julia, stop.
Julia, what is interesting what you're saying is this is what I am feeling when I'm acting. It's interesting.
I agree. So that part, I think, is very similar. When you dance with somebody in a group, and I'm not talking about dancing together, because that's something...
A different thing.
That's completely different. Like if you have a lead and a follower, but if you're on stage together as a group, you do feel the other person. Oh my God, of course you do. You know if they have a split second where they forget the next step. And then the anxiety, will they be able to remember, or do they throw you off and you forget it as well? So you think together as a group. Yes, absolutely. That is the same, I'd say, with dancing and acting. Yeah.
And I think also when you talked about this, you had the glitch. You were like, all of a sudden, you were just there. You were just in the now. That is the ultimate in acting. That's what I love. When I'm able to tap into that, and when you're able to tap into that, there are days that are better, days that are worse, where you're like, good. Damn it. And they're also inside that day when you're just like on set and you have takes. Like one take, you're just like fully in the zone, and next take, you're like, what was I doing in my head? No, no. And that's also this beauty and the freedom where you get there or able to let go of everything and just be in the moment.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Like
That's
being in
gorgeous.
the moment, shutting the talking mind off for the duration of, like, probably when people meditate, that is the goal, isn't it? Like
Yes.
to shut that
Yeah.
mind off, and we do it through creative output.
That is true. I love this. I love it. I did hip hop. I just want to be a part of the game. So I did hip hop and it was horrendous, but it's okay. I did it.
I want to ask more questions about English, because this is basically the language that I gravitated towards myself. And I also spent, it wasn't creative for me. It was just, I fell in love with the language and I wanted to do everything in English. And I spent years in, like 3.5 years in the UK. I lived in Scotland, and then I moved to England. And I don't know, it was something about this language that just, I feel in this language, I dream in this language, I write, and it's something that makes absolute sense to me. It's like, I'm obviously not a native speaker. I started learning it as I think when I was 7 years old or something. But this language is just perfect for me. I don't know. And it's interesting because even now, living all over the place, like in Italy, in Russia, going back and forth, I still prefer to write in English and to, to somehow incorporate it into my daily life. It's just always somewhere in the air, in the mix with me. What was it for you? Do you know? Can you put your finger on it? Why? Yes, you said it was your father's friends, like native language, and you grew. But we all grew up with like multiple languages, and somehow it's English. Why do you think that is for you?
Honestly, I don't know. I think that hearing my parents and the adults around speak in this language must have been a big part. It seemed like it was their secret language, but I understood it very quickly. So it was not their secret language anymore. It was more my secret that I knew their language and I could listen in. So I don't know, but we're surrounded so much with English, also with music. Like a lot of songs are in English. So when you start listening to music as a kid or as a teen, then of course you listen to a lot of English. So I cannot tell you. I can't really say that was it. And yes, I love Shakespeare. I mean, I studied English, and oh God, how can you not love Shakespeare? And so many other great writers. It is a language I feel, like you said, like writing in English feels very different from writing in German. And yes, we have different vocabulary, but it's also the quality of the sound of the language. So I have no answer for that. It's just how it is. I think I was born with the wrong mother tongue. Would you have an answer, Valeria? Would you be able to put your finger on it and say that was it?
For me, it's more complicated. I don't know. I feel like maybe it's also because I kind of artificially surrounded myself when I was back from the UK. It wasn't by choice. It was basically because there was some situation with the visa and I couldn't stay, and it kind of was forced on me. So I already imagined my life back in the UK. I was have everything planned. And then I came back. It felt like I'm missing a part of me. So I started to like almost artificially surround myself with like books, like movies, I don't know, like podcasts, like everything in English. I was reading, writing, surrounding myself, like talking back to friends in English and everything. So every part of my life that wasn't work was in English somehow, all the recreational stuff. So maybe that's how, but it was more than that. I don't know. It was something that in me, kind of, it's easier to explain myself when I write. I feel like it also has to do something with the structure of the language. Because, like, I don't know how is it in German, but in Russian, for example, to say the same thing, it paragraphs. It's like, it's not that kind of economic. It's not that logical. The structure of the language, you can like write paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs. In English, you can write like two sentences. And I love how clever it is, how, you know, lucrative you can be with the grammar, how you can use different things to just kind of squeeze all the sense that you have into this little. I mean, as a writer, I just love English. But of course, like having so many great the great representation, and English being the international language, it's also, I think, a big part of it. And yeah, I don't have one clear answer as well.
I do have to say, though, on the topic of languages, that I would always prefer to, like, if I watch a film, I would always prefer to watch it in the original language. And if I don't know the language, watch it with subtitles, because language always adds a layer, and something is lost. Like, if it would be in, I don't know, Chinese or Spanish, I still want to listen to the language I'm not familiar with, rather than having it dubbed in something, I don't know, in a clean language that does not relate to the characters really.
Yeah. I started doing it when I started kind of living more in Europe, because you guys have this opportunity in the cinemas. You can go and watch in the original with the subtitles. But I was doing it anyway with English all the time. But yeah, I think it kind of adds the depth. Even if you don't understand the language, it still kind of gives you, subconsciously maybe.
It gives you a flavor of...
Exactly.
Yeah. Language does have character as well.
And it's also, you're not getting the energy of another actor on top of the performance of the actor that originally is directed. Because that's something that when the dumping comes in on top of it, there's another language on top, it's a mixture of two actors, two energies, and it does change. So that's also an interesting part about it all. And why it's good if you're able to, you know, just read the subtitles and look at watch with the original actor, with their voice, with their energy, purely their performance. So yeah, I understand. That is beautiful. And for me, it was, I think, Julia, maybe what you had, because as you talked about Valeria, in Europe, we have the original languages even on TV and stuff. At least we had it in Iceland. That's why it's so natural to me, because I just grew up with it. And when you grow up with, like, I mean, in my house, TV was like 24 on. It was just running in the background somehow. It could be that. Which we loved. And you hear it constantly. It becomes a part of you. It becomes a part of your genes. And yeah, so maybe that explains yours. You said for you, Julia. And also, and you talked about that you and your family, that you're the only artist.
One of two.
One of two.
One of two. I have a
family.
cousin, and let me think. I think so. Yeah. My cousin's a photographer. Other than that, can't think of anyone.
How has it been for you then to navigate that? Because I know it can be hard. You know, experience myself that if others don't understand kind of what you're going into, don't understand this passion, or sometimes you'd call it something else, or you're just like, people are like, why don't you just let go of this? I can't.
Insanity.
Yes.
Now, I think I was very lucky in a way that my parents wanted to support me. They did not understand. I don't think a part of them does till today. But they were always trying to be supportive. And yes, we did have the talks in between with why aren't you already earning money with this? Because we want you to. It's like, yes, I would like to do that as well, very much. Thank you. It is hard if you feel that nobody understands you in your surroundings. Yeah. And in that way, I was twice lucky because they tried to be supportive, even if they didn't understand. And I always had my cousin who would understand, like, artists have to function in different ways sometimes. And also, of course, I do have George, who you talked to last week. And that has been and continues to be incredible because we can share and understand our work, our thoughts, and we do have the support like right next to us. That is incredibly valuable.
That is beautiful.
Do you guys have what's your closest support person?
This girl.
Good answer.
No, this is the honest answer. I mean, my parents are supportive to a fault, but in a way that they don't understand anything. They're not trying anymore, I guess. At the same time, they have a very clear picture of how life should be. And sometimes then they see that I'm kind of figuring it out. They're trying to force their picture of the world on me, and I'm kind of like taking a step back and, you know. But it's beautiful to have a family that is, you know, maybe don't understand, yet don't kind of invade your personal space or don't try to tell you, okay, you're not living your life in the right way. This is the way to do it. This is, I think, like what everyone wishes to have. But yeah, but having your chosen family, right? Your friends, your co-creators, that's, I think, is also a great support. And I found it in Eva for sure.
I found it in you, gorgeous. and very lucky there. And have, as you know, beautiful, Julia, you know them too, beautiful friends that in my community. I started building that because my family didn't understand, so I knew that I would need to get that support somewhere else. And giving yourself, you know, the pep talk all the time alone at some point is really draining, and it's just, there's so much you can do alone, and it's just, art is community. Art is, that's the beauty of art that I love so much, particularly with acting. So yeah, it was my friends, those that are around me. They're also in acting, they're also creatives, writers, directors, producers. So yeah, that's where I get my support.
I think it's very rare to not come from an artistic family and have the family fully understand everything. Like, yes. I don't think that exists. Because how could they? Exactly. In all fairness, like, why should they? How could they?
Exactly. Yeah, no, that is true.
Very true. I wanted to go into the stumbling part that Eva initiated. You said that you are involuntarily good with producing. How so? Yes. How does that happen to you? Please tell us.
I try to be organized. I'm going to start with that. The explanation. I feel, this is the honest explanation. I feel I am so chaotic inside that I like to have order around me. And that probably makes me a good producer. That is the explanation I've come up with over the years. And I've produced 2 short films so far, which may sound like only 2. They've been huge. Yes. I've acted in a lot of short films, and those 2 that I produced were gigantic. I do not recommend starting with a gigantic short film. But that's what happened to me. The stumbling into producing. The first project was George's short film that we filmed in Ireland. And how did that actually happen that I co-produced? The film was at a point, or the production was at a point where it had to be postponed for, I think, the second time. George already had agreed or had found people to work on this short film who were absolutely amazing. I mean, they were, at that time, they were working on Into the Badlands, and the DOP was, or just had been working on, oh God, huge Netflix series, and I just forgot the name. It will come back to me. So, something with curious events. Oh my God, I should know that. I'm a blank. So they had agreed to work on that short film, but then of course things happen and people get other jobs, and you have to postpone the smaller project for their bigger jobs, very understandably, because they earn more money on the big job. But it was quite clear that it needed to have more drive, more force from the production side as well. And George, I love him very much. He's a workaholic. And sometimes he forgets he cannot do everything at the same time himself. He needs to be reminded of that. So initially I just said, can I help you? Like, can I help you out? Is there anything I can do to help you, to support you? And that's how it started. And I end up being the co-producer on this gigantic project. That was the initial step.
Okay. The lesson here: do not ask the question.
Do not ask your man if you can help.
If you can help.
Like, no.
And in the beginning, it was literally just, do you need help writing a few emails? And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, I'm the co-producer now.
You're so good with this, so please continue, right? And that project we're speaking about, is it the secret box, or is it?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, exactly. It's a secret box. So I co-produced the film parts of it, and I think George must have talked about it. Like,
yes.
It was a project in 3 parts, and the film part is part 1 and part 3, which I worked on. Yeah.
And how was it do it in Ireland for the first time as well? Because it's away from...
Insane.
Honest?
Insane. Like, for me, it was insane because I did not know the ropes of the film industry in Ireland. I had focused on the acting side of things. Like, when we moved there, he focused on his things and I focused on acting, which kind of seemed to make sense. And all of a sudden then finding me in his project and talking to James Fagan, the other producer who was on board, felt like, okay, I'm the foreigner here, not only being Austrian in Ireland, but being all of a sudden in a position where I produce and I have a say in things, but also, of course, need to find things miraculously. Try doing that in a country that, yes, you've lived in for a couple of years, but still, you like, I didn't have the contacts, and it turned out that we were quite a good team. In like, when one of us got stuck, the other one miraculously, and I deliberately use this word, miraculously found a way to solve their problem. So the lesson in the end, I think, is teamwork makes the dream work. Mm-hmm. Like so many things, it's not about pushing on your own, like we just said, support. It's about sharing the problems, especially if you're producing, and say, okay, how do we solve this? How do we solve that? I remember an incident where the night before we started to shoot, somebody, I think it was the lighting department, it seemed they had agreed they are going to find a hazer for the set, and they're going to bring hazer with the equipment. And when asked, they said, well, no, it was art department was supposed to bring that. So it was past midnight, and we were without hazer for the next morning, starting at 6 o'clock in the morning. So what do you do? And I was tired and getting to a point where you're desperate and going like, do we really need a hazer? And of course we did need a hazer. And I just talked to another friend about this, and he said, you know what? A friend of mine happens to have a hazer at home, and I'm just gonna pick it up for you. So, and then being able to call James saying, you know what? It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I found a hazer. That's why I say miraculously. Or somebody, I don't know, for some reason, catering needed an extra big pot, and they told me they needed a pot, and I was like, wow, where am I supposed to, find a cauldron or something? Cauldron. And then I think James's grandmother had one. So it was a case of we had this insane equipment, we had this fantastic experienced crew, and then the little things where you go, okay, I'm gonna make them appear now because we want this project to be the best it can be. And then they appeared. Yeah.
When you say I'm going to make them appear, what do you mean by that?
I don't know how I made the hazer appear. It was just like, I really need a hazer now. And just talking to the friend about that. And yeah. Sometimes. I think manifesting. What I learned producing, most certainly learned, is you push and you want the very best for your project, and then there is a point where you have to let go. So you can find a hazer miraculously at 3 o'clock in the morning. You cannot fix other things that have gone wrong before, so you have to find a way to work with them. I'm going to give you an example from the other short film, which was called Sweet Survival.
Which you produced in Austria.
Which I co-produced in Austria. And so I knew the setting, I knew the country, I knew the language, so it seemed a lot easier. And then accidents do happen. People get tired, we forget things.
Yes.
One lighting technician, grip team, grip and lighting.
What is it about light here? Guys,
I don't know.
What are we talking about?
I don't want to diss them. Sorry, I love you guys. I really do.
Amazing.
But he was tired and he forgot a couple of clamps, something to fix things. And he had them with him. He wanted to bring them on set, and he forgot them in public transport.
Oh.
Which is not ideal.
Oh.
Like really not ideal. And that's when I found out that the Viennese public transport system does not have a lost and found any longer.
Ooh.
That was shite. So what do? You make sure that the guy is not completely destroyed and cannot do the rest of his job on that day. You need him there. You need him at work. You need him to continue. You need to keep him calm. You need to keep everybody else calm, and then find a way to solve that problem. So you just, in the moment, there is no use yelling at people or whatever, being annoyed. You just go, you just breathe and let go. Say, okay, that's how it is right now. And then you fix it. And how did we fix that? We asked every single bus driver if they had seen the package with the clamps, and one of them had. And we got it back.
Amazing.
Yes.
And you found it and you could work with it on
Yeah.
that day even?
Yeah.
Damn, girl.
Yeah. Took a couple of hours, but we found it. And was like, okay, keep calm, everybody, just go on. And you need everyone on set to put their creative energy into the project. I feel that's the role of the producer. As a producer, you have to make sure creatives work the creative part of things. So that's why I so far feel like I do not want to produce and act at the same time. I know there are people out there who can do that, and I have nothing but the highest respect. Maybe one day I will be able, but now I feel like, no, if I produce, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to make sure everybody else can do their job. That's the role of the producer.
Yeah. Was there a big difference, because you're talking about big projects, was there a big difference between in Ireland producing there and producing in Austria? Because both of these projects were in tiny. And this, as you talked about, was there a big difference? And if yes, what was it?
No, it wasn't, I would say. What they had in common was they were both, like, the Irish one was international because we were there as the foreigners, and everybody else from Ireland worked with us, all these amazing crew people who had worked again in the Badlands, Penny Dreadful, and yada yada and so on, and Vikings, of course, like filmed in Ireland. And the other project in Austria had a different origin. It was a script that 5 actresses wrote originally, and before Corona, and in London. So it had a completely different starting point. But Katharina Gerlich, who then turned into the main force behind the project, is a dear friend of mine. And she got She got the funding for the project to do the film. And then Corona hit. And then they tried to film it in Spain because a lot of the people involved were from Spain, were Spanish, and they thought, okay, let's go there. And that turned out to be almost impossible. And again, with the Corona uncertainty, in the end, Katharina came to me saying, I'm going to lose the funding I procured if I don't film now. Because we have till the end of the year, and that's it. That was after Corona. And we need to do this now. Can you produce it? And I said, absolutely no. Because the time frame we had was 2 months, and we did not have a location yet in Austria. We had no crew yet. It was again, insane. Producing is slightly insane. Yeah. But I also knew that if this didn't happen now, it wouldn't, and I thought that was a shame for the entire project that had started so ambitiously. And in the end, we did it. We pulled it off. The cast was very international. The crew was very international. I mean, yes, most of them Austrian, but a lot of Spanish, and like people from all over the world. We had, I think, 7 different mother tongues on set, from Polish to Portuguese to Chinese to Turkish to whatever. And working together was, for me, that was why I signed on to the project, to work so internationally here in Austria. That was the beauty of it. Yeah.
One other question I'm so curious about this. If somebody goes to, so the thing is with us today, and it's always been like that, is that you kind of have to, produce your stuff on your own. And there are a lot of beautiful directors, writers. Valeria's one of them. She's amazing. She's one that wears all the hats and does it all the ones, which is crazy. I don't know. And it's really common set, because I know that. I worked with her. I'm like, how do you do that? What would you recommend to someone that's out there thinking about their project, and it comes to the producing part? Because I know a lot of people are a little bit afraid of that, particularly us artists because we're kind of like all over the place with our thoughts and we can be a little bit butterfly, way and stuff. What would you recommend?
I would say if it's your first project, your first short film, or even as an actor, your show reel, go do it. Don't think too much about it. Absolutely do it. And then by time you will see that sounds almost cruel. You will see what's possible and what's not. But I don't mean it that way. I mean, like I had worked on short films before. I knew what a short film is like. And when George presented me with this very ambitious project, I knew this was different. So what I'm trying to say is, don't start at the high end. Don't start working with people who are way more experienced than you. If you do, make sure they take you by the hand, but then you have to be in the position to be able and go like, please let me learn from you. So absolutely do it. Produce your own things. And if you want to grow bigger, learn step by step.
Thank you.
I think that's what I would say. And don't start with going to Ari and asking for all their equipment. That's what we did in Austria. Shout out to Ari Austria. They were amazing. They were absolutely amazing because they were so impressed with the project as well, and with our entire female camera crew.
Oh,
Yes. It was about communication and telling them about the project, and so we get a lot of support from Ari. Yes.
shout out to Ari. Very nice.
Interesting. I'm thinking, but your soul is in acting more, right? So you kind of...
My soul is in acting. Yes, I have to say that. And like in an ideal world, in an ideal world, I would be Reese Witherspoon and able to act and produce and do everything.
Yes, why not? Okay, we're manifesting now. You say that again. Say that again. Why not?
So maybe one day, let's see, we'll meet again and I'll tell you about the empire I've built.
Wow. Manifesting.
Well, thank you.
For you. But that's not the only thing, like, not the only. You're doing so much. I want to ask you about the podcast. It's called Liebesgeschichte.
Liebesgeschichte, yes.
Liebesgeschichte. Yes. And it's, it touches some very provocative and, I'd say, overlooked topics.
Overlooked, certainly.
Yes.
Certainly it does. So right now my day job is I work for a podcast. And like Valeria just said, it's called Liebesgeschichte. And it's the only German-speaking podcast about love and sex history.
Nice.
And what is love and sex history? Well, anything and everything throughout history that comes to mind now about love and sex. So that can be examples like biographies of Marquis de Sade, the guy sadism was named after, but that also can be the history of tentacle porn. And no, that is not an invention from like yesterday's alien film. Tentacle porn has existed for centuries and has origins in Japan.
No.
My Google browser search has an interesting history.
How did you start on this project? How did it come about?
That project came to me. That project is a gift. It came to me. My friend Franziska Singer, she has another podcast. She also runs Austria's biggest true crime podcast. And that's been going strong for 5 years now. It's called Darf's ein bisschen Mord sein. Hello, Franziska.
Hello, Franziska.
And at a podcast convention, she met a historian who's also a podcaster, and they talked about, well, that would be so interesting to have a podcast that looks at love, sex, and history. So this is how the project started. And then they took me on board, yay, as a writer and researcher for the project as well, because now we produce weekly episodes, and you need more people to work on that because it is a lot of work. So there's 3 of us in a team now.
Okay. Can we, I'm sorry, I need to ask this. I mean, Valeria, hey, tentacle sex? Like what? Huh? Sorry. I mean, that is not really a part of this podcast, but I am, what?
Now it is. Now it is.
Now it is. Now it is.
Now it is. And originating from Japan? Can we just shortly talk about that? Just short. I am so curious. And for you gorgeous listeners, you are listening or watching us, you definitely need to check this podcast, and we will definitely have it in the show notes, a link to it, because this is. But can we just shortly talk about it? Like,
Sure. Let's talk about tentacle sex.
Thank you.
So Katrin is the historian. I'm not. So I'm not going to use years and numbers right now.
Fine.
But tentacle sex originated in Japan, and if you think of Japanese art, maybe you can remember that you have seen at some point, I'm sure, there are these amazing paintings with blue waves, blue, white, black. Yes. So the same artist drew pictures of naked women being loved by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tentacles or more. So, for example, that would fall under tentacle porn. They are very explicit, the pictures. Very, very explicit. And the women look very happy. Being caressed and cuddled by 8 arms at the same time.
Whoa.
Yeah, so that is the original idea, to have more than one arm on you.
I love where this is going. Okay.
And I'm not going to say where the tentacles can go.
No.
Speaking of going, because this is not a love and sex history podcast.
Or coming.
But listen to the love and sex history podcast if you speak German. If you don't speak German, learn German with this
Perfect
podcast.
teaser.
We have amazing vocabulary for you there.
Okay, so it's easy, guys. Just learn German. And then you can come. What? No.
Pun intended. Yay.
Oh
Yeah,
my God.
I can imagine our Google search history today.
Oh my
I can also mention that I just worked on an episode of the history of the clitoris, and like I didn't even know before that the clitoris did have a history, but oh my God, does it have one? And just the amount of times that it was excluded from anatomy books or wrongly displayed, and then found again, big quotation marks, like rediscovered. Where was it?
God.
Where could it have gone? That was eye-opening.
What is that?
Oh, wow.
It exists.
What is it?
Okay, wow. That's yeah, we definitely need to listen to your podcast.
I love working for
I
this
need
podcast.
to refresh my German for that.
Yeah, because Valeria, you do speak, you understand German, you speak Italian, Russian, English. Like,
Oh
am
my
I missing
goodness.
any languages? You have like multiple. It's like the 8 arms. It's weird.
Yeah, that will be a big comeback for German.
Okay, wow, that is amazing.
But am I getting it right? You're doing it through like you're the researcher, you're female. Then I've heard there is the historian who is with you. She's also female, and the podcaster herself is a female. So this is a podcast that basically is framed through like a female type of lens, right?
Probably. Like we discussed this before, we're three cis women doing a podcast with three white cis women, to be honest. How much diversity can we bring in there? And I think we're trying our very best. We are on the queer spectrum, like two of us are bisexual. So we do have that in there. We understand things maybe from a different point of view than other people would. But we're always very happy to get feedback and recommendations about topics and issues people would like to know more about or see themselves represented. We have done interviews with people, be it anonymous or on the podcast, because sometimes people, obviously, with that topic and that history, with that topic, do not want to go public. But there's also an interview where a friend just interviewed two sisters of the Order of Perpetual Indulgence. And if you don't know what that is an order, as in church, but it's not the church. It's an order of nuns. And these nuns are probably mostly gay men, but not only gay men, all kinds on the queer spectrum. And you can become a nun for the order if you hear the calling, I've learned. And they support the AIDS research, AIDS community, HIV prevention. Like they go out, talk to people and support people. They're amazing, and they've existed since the 70s.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That and all over the world?
All over the world. Pretty much. It started in San Francisco. There is most certainly an order in Germany because they came from Germany for the interview here. I've learned there used to be one in Vienna. For some reason there isn't, like a base in Vienna. But it's all over the world, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
This morning when you woke up, you didn't know yet that you were going to talk
I was
about
going to talk about tentacle sex.
tentacles, clitoris, and the Order of Perpetual Indulgence. But you're welcome.
Thank you.
It's always on our agenda.
Thank you. I am liking this. I'm like, should I pivot to what I want to talk about, or should I just stay on this topic?
A little longer, just a little longer.
Just a little longer. You know what? Let's go into role play.
Yeah.
Let's go to roleplay.
Sounds about right.
Yes.
But the thing is, we're talking about role play and your acting career. This sounds so weird. Because of all of this. But it's really exciting. Role play is exciting. Because this one involves the medical university and also bomb squad. Oh my god, this is getting more exciting. Everything I say, I'm like, this is so exciting.
This episode is clickbait all over.
Okay, so yeah, the role play we're talking about involves the medical university in Austria and the bomb squad in Austria.
It does.
Guys, if you do not, after me saying this, want to live in Austria, I do not know what's wrong with you. But please do tell us about that, because that's really exciting.
Absolutely. And I'm going to start with explaining that role play is nothing kinky. No kink shaming. Absolutely no kink shaming whatsoever. But I know that in the English speaking world, role play is part of acting jobs. It is not so much in the German speaking world. So I'm just going to explain that. Role play means that as an actor, you go somewhere, you're hired to go somewhere to train people, mostly in communications. And quite often internationally, like I've heard from friends who are CEOs in companies or are working with big companies, and they sometimes have days with actors where they get to train their like presentation skills, where they get to train their communication skills, like how to hire or fire people in a way that both sides go away healthy. And that is bridging to the medical university, I do role play at the medical university. I'm in a program that is called, sometimes that sounds a bit misleading, but it's called Simulation Patient Program. So I am trained to simulate. I'm going to say that on quotation marks because we know as actors we don't simulate, we are. So I go there as a patient and I help train future doctors how to communicate, for example, messages that are very, very hard to communicate, like, I'm sorry, but you do have a terminal illness. That is just something you need to be able to say in a clear and kind way as a medical personnel, and then work with all kinds of ways that the patient will react to that. So that was just one example. Of course, there's also other types of patients where they refuse to take the medicine for whatever reason. And then again, as a doctor, how do you deal with that? Like, how do you make it clear for the patient that you want only their best and that this medication would help them if they took it? So I've been doing that for 3 years now. I really enjoy it. It's a very different kind of acting. It feels like applied acting.
What do you mean?
Which is a weird way of saying that I act with non-actors and they go away having hopefully learned something. And the feedback we get from medical students is always really, like, they appreciate these classes, the communication classes, a lot, because beforehand, I don't think that if you, especially with medicine, you have to learn so freaking much. Besides anatomy and all the chemistry and yada da da da, lists and lists of things and medication, what you have to learn, you are in danger, I think, to forget about the fact that eventually you have to work with a living human being that has not studied all that you've studied, and that's why you're there for, but you need to be able to communicate that. And again, it has to be helpful for both sides. Like telling someone that their husband or that their wife or their loved one just died half an hour ago. How do you do that? And then go away healthy yourself and make sure the other person is safe. That is a challenge. Yeah. Sorry, that took a very quick turn from.
No. So very important.
Yeah.
And I think it's also, we usually, as on the other side, not as medical people, we think about the patient and their family, right? So, but there is also the doctor themselves, right?
Yeah.
Who's
Yeah.
the living,
Like both sides are
breathing
human.
being, and they have to go through those motions every single day. It's yeah.
Yeah.
Do you also happen to work with maybe like psychological side, or you?
Yeah. Yes, that as well. Let me think of depression is like one of the biggest examples. Like, how do you make sure this person is not going to go home and commit suicide? Now, you do need a content warning on the podcast. I'm sorry, but that is the truth. Like a very, very big part of psychological work. Again, making sure that the patient who does not look ill, but they still need help. Like, how do you do that? How do you go about that?
Wow. And then the bomb squad, you're just...
The bomb squad is, that's obviously not the medical university. That is a EU program that happens to be stationed in Vienna. And they also, so it's very international as well. They train people here how to defuse bombs. Yes. And then where I or we as actors again come in is the communication training. Like, what if you do have a hostage in the situation? So that is the training. We help with there with different situations. And unfortunately, I cannot talk more about this.
That's okay. That's okay.
Because it's all very
Understandable.
hush-hush and for reasons. But same with the medical university and the bomb squad, like both sides. I've learned so much. It expands your horizon to see people work in extreme situations you never want to be in. But if you are, you have to be so grateful that there are experts who know what they're doing. And I think that's why it feels like applied acting. I become part of their reality, part of their daily routine. Yeah.
That is
Thank you for the
exciting.
work you're doing. I think it's very.
Oh, well,
very
thank them.
important.
That's
Yeah.
Also you, because like those people also need like support. You know, even the ones
They-
that
they
who
need-
give
yeah.
support, they
Yeah.
also need support. So
Mm.
it's very important. Wow, so many
Yeah, we're
things to
just- we're like-
process.
I'm like,
Honestly,
my brain. Well, the only thing I wanted to say is because I think a lot of actors are not aware of those jobs.
yes,
And I think
they're
that's
not really.
something what's important to talk about. And I love, because there's something about you, Julia, you have, it's, your career is so special and exciting. And I think this is something, please tell us like more about it, because for actors, it's a lot of times they're just like, okay, it's either on stage or I'm in front of the camera. And if they're not able to get either of these two, they're like, okay, I'm not on, I don't have a job. But there's so much more out there that is really exciting, where you're helping. As Valeria said, thank you so much for, what you're doing. And the other actors, which it is. And also thanks to, obviously, those that are, the doctors and then the bomb squad and everything. But this supporting each other. So would love for you to talk about that. Like, are there other jobs, like, for actors that you know of that most of us aren't even aware of?
Good question. Thank you for calling my career so
It is.
special. I think each of our careers are individual, because we are individuals, and that's what makes us interesting as artists. Like, if we were all the same, that would just be very boring, and nobody would watch or listen or read or whatever. So that is the skill of being an artist, is being an individual. Roleplay, I think, is a very, very, very big part of the acting world that people in, I'm going to say, Central Europe. The first time I heard about roleplay was when I studied in London. We had a role-playing, like a guy who did roleplay come in and explain to us like what he did on a daily basis, and he was one of those who mostly trained with CEOs and companies and communications in the company. But that was the first time I heard about it. And ever since then, I thought, I really would like to do that. So hearing about this program at the university here was amazing. And the program actually has existed for 10 years or longer now. And I didn't know about it. So people absolutely need to need to be informed that these things do exist. But you were asking about other jobs. That's a very interesting question.
Or even different ways of role play, as in the, I'm not talking about the kinky again. It sounded like that.
But you would like to.
I would so like to, guys. Okay, can we go back to that? No. Yes. As in,
it's getting better and better.
this is amazing. I love this. As in, you said we had like the bomb squad, didn't think of that. I knew in the business world, I know of it, I've done that myself. The hospital, are there any other, because I think it's good then for the, actors, creatives out there that are interested, just to kind of think about like, where could you apply? Like, how do you apply for these jobs? Like, where do you find them?
While you were mentioning all the other things, like one of my colleagues from medical university, she also does communications training, and how would you say that? Like she works with teenagers, about, oh God, not being aggressive, like how to deal with aggression. I hope I say that halfway correctly. So there are different kinds of role play scenarios. This again sounds very kinky, but let's just roll with it. And how do you find these jobs? Well, the medical university, for example, they do an open like job application thingy every year around September. So keep your eyes peeled if you're looking for that. The other jobs, I think like the bomb squad one, I got because of the medical university, because one of my colleagues there said, bomb squad, they're looking for women to work with, specifically women, because they're all men there, and they would like to train with women. So that's how I got there. And the other jobs, maybe no. I'm not going to say created. That's not what I mean. Not from scratch, because you absolutely do need training. But look for it, because if you don't look for it, if you don't know it exists, if you don't know it exists, you probably won't see it.
Yeah, true. That's so true.
Explore. The other question that I had, and I wanted to ask it for a while, you mentioned your partner, and we interviewed him. That episode hasn't aired. I don't know, maybe it will when people get to watch this episode. I think it will. So the question is, how is it to live with another creative person, to work and to build a relationship that is, supportive as a family and as a creative kind of also force?
That is a very, very good question. I think that we have learned to give not give each other space, hold the space for each other, because we understand when one of us is in a phase where it's especially hectic, chaotic, stressful, or the opposite. We know and fully understand that our work goes in waves and in phases. And I think that can drive people who aren't creative crazy. Like that's a wrong assumption, but if you work in a regular job and I'm going to have a weekend and I'm going to have holidays and days off, and then your partner doesn't, and your partner's life just goes up and down, I'd imagine that be much harder than what we have. So we know what the other person is going through at any given point in time. And I mean that with good and with bad things or phases. Everything is a phase. When we started dating, like when we met, we were careful and aware that we're both from the same business, and careful and aware because, like, when you meet somebody, you don't know, is this going to end up a years-long relationship, or is this just going to be, well, sorry, you're not the person for me. And I think we both approached it very softly in a way. Also, we both had experiences with not being with partners from the creative world. And then we very quickly realized what a relief it is to be able to talk about everything and feel understood. So that was a very, very big thing for both of us. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And then working together as well.
We've worked together, I think, twice so far. I'm not counting tiny things. Like I've been in one of his music videos, where Eva has also been.
Now we have to have a link to that
music video.
By the way.
So that was the first time George directed me, and then I think by the point that I joined on his short film as a co-producer, by then we were such a team and we knew each other so well already over years that was no issue. And we just worked side by side on the same project. And so even more than understanding what the other person does, you know the person is in this space right now. And no, it's never been an issue. The only issue sometimes is that we talk too much about work, I guess, like in our free time, and it's rare, I think. But sometimes we need to stop each other and say, you know what, let's not talk about this right now. Yeah, I've met couples who are also both in the business, and they had rules that after a certain date or after like state of time or on weekends, they wouldn't talk about work. I find that optimistic. That doesn't work for either of us. But also to be fine when one of us says, you know what, right now I have no headspace, I cannot talk about this, and just going, okay, that's fine. Respecting that. Yeah.
Beautiful.
That sounds like a beautiful relationship.
Yeah.
It is, I think.
It is. I know them. They're amazing. We just go well with the two of you. It is so gorgeous. I just love being around you guys. It's such a beautiful, loving atmosphere, and yeah, one feels really safe around you. It's beautiful. Like,
oh, thank you.
So it's obvious that you two are an amazing team. It's beautiful.
We're trying.
We're trying.
Trying our
Everyone's
best.
trying their best. Julia, this has been amazing. So much fun.
Thank you for having me, you two. It was beautiful talking to both of you. And Valeria, oh my God, I didn't know you were a dancer. How could I not know that beforehand?
Well, that's not in the public knowledge. My experience with dancing was like more traumatic, to be entirely honest. It's something that built my endurance and self-discipline, but at the same time, kind of, you know, knocked on other doors. Yeah, but it's, you know, it's experience.
I'm gonna see you two like dancing together next month.
Yay! and I see you two dreaming about tentacle porn tonight.
Oh my God!
Why do we have to wait for tonight?
Oh yeah, of course.
We are dreaming already with our eyes open. The only thing we're thinking about is 8 arms. 8. Can we say that again? 8 arms.
8 very soft arms around you. Yeah.
And just like, we need to see those pictures, these Japanese
art.
artists, the art. I think we need a link to that too. So if you can give us a link to that.
We'll find it. I'll send you more links.
Thank you.
We'll have it under your podcast.
Thank you from our listeners as well.
Everyone is going to be, after this episode,
you're also welcome.
I'm going to be so satisfied.
It's a very satisfying episode.
It's a very satisfying episode.
In my head, I'm already editing the quotes for this episode. It's coming along nicely.
It's coming along nicely. We have enough stuff here. Yeah. Thank you, gorgeous. You are amazing. Keep on rocking the world with your amazing talent. It is so interesting and amazing. I just love it. I love all of it. Thank you.
Thank you for listening, you two. Really.
It was fascinating. Thank you.